Good afternoon, Philadelphia. Welcome back to the second hour of the Conservative Voice on WWDB AM 860. You know, we do live stream this show on X and on Facebook and Rumble, although we're having a little bit of technical trouble with Facebook today. But and that's caused us some grief, so you may have to be patient. But please go to Facebook, Rumble, and X and like our pages and follow us and stuff, because we really need your help to grow this audience and make this work. Now, in this second hour, we're going to jump in, as we said, with a guest we have on from time to time.
My favorite.
Yeah, and there's a lot to chat about here because the guest is, of course, Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports. Mark is the head pollster at Rasmussen, and of course, Rasmussen is always in the market. They are always polling, so there's a constant stream of information. In fact, I was out today on RasmussenReports.com, I think is the website, and it's just a wealth of information. It helps me kind of get level set, because when I'm watching the media, it turns out I'm deceived. I have no idea what's going on. I think things that aren't true. I get back to this polling and it works. So, Mark, welcome back to the Conservative Voice on WWDB AM 860.
Great to be back. And, yeah, you guys are my favorite show, so it's awesome.
I love that. It's mutual. That's so cute.
Yeah, that we actually don't take that lightly. We really quite appreciate that. And we have always appreciated when you had us on your show, because those are fun conversations, too. I love on your podcast the way you go into the numbers but make them accessible. Like I can listen to this stuff maybe more than some folks because I'm in it a lot. But
right.
Joe Main Street could listen to your podcast and know what you're talking about.
And it's fun. It's a fun podcast.
It actually
I watch
is.
it, and I don't watch a lot of podcasts because, I get enough, really. But I do watch yours.
Well, thank you. And, a lot of it, people think about politics and political polling and say, well, he's probably talking about all these wonky races and this guy's up 2 points against that guy. No, we're talking about really important societal trends here, because I think we can all acknowledge that we're sort of adrift in this particular situation, and that there's a lot of people that in the media are not addressing the underlying themes. And I think a really good example is if you listen to mainstream pollsters, you'll probably hear about them predict the election. Oh, well, Kamala Harris is going to beat Donald Trump by 4 points.
Yep.
And they might even go into, what's the number one issue? And people say the economy, and number two is border security. And maybe, just maybe, they'll poll on, who's leading on the issue of something like border security.
Yep.
But what we found is, everybody overwhelmingly supports 100% deportation. People support the program of sending violent criminals back to Venezuela. People want walls built. People want the military rolling down city streets. This is the core of what America really is, and it makes it so much more clear than this political football of, Trump's up 3 points on immigration. And what does that mean? Well, America thought that we were invaded. And
right.
Yes.
Did it.
Because we saw it on our streets.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is really important. So, we've been watching all these protests, this ICE meltdown, right? They are out there attacking these guys. They come and stand in front of them as if they don't have to move. They attack their vehicles. I don't know if you saw the lady in the SUV that slammed her SUV into ICE vehicles.
Yeah.
I mean, that's assault with a deadly car, right? I mean,
that is considered assault with a deadly weapon.
A 2,000-pound weapon or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, so this is real stuff. And yet, when you watch this, the media is constantly guiding us down the path of getting us to think that it's at least equal, or a majority of Americans think that ICE is bad and that ICE should be taken out. Well, then you go run a poll on Trump and the National Guard deployment, and what is the public support for that?
I forget the exact number. I'm pretty sure it was plus 10, though, or pretty close to it. I mean, it's a strong majority. But the issue we're talking about here is that there is an information war and a battle of competing worldviews. And it's kind of sad because fundamentally Americans are actually pretty close on core beliefs. And so close to 70% of people in my polling say that they're Christian, and a really high majority say that they're at least somewhat religious. They overwhelmingly are concerned about things like fairness. The most popular thing is hating two-tiered justice in America. 95% hate the idea of two-tiered justice.
Right.
And they want things like election integrity reform in the 80s to 90s, depending on how you ask it. But then it's like, okay, well, and even illegal immigration. 70% of America roughly just hates the idea of illegal immigration. they just disagree on what's the right way to solve it. Well, is it amnesty versus deporting everybody? And a lot of these people are very susceptible to the emotional attacks, to the videos, and to all the lies and gaslighting. And so that's the problem, is you have this liberal worldview, which is like, okay, religion's all about acceptance, and Trump needs to be resisted, and we can't actually, words are violence, like that's not good. And then you have this other worldview, which is like, no, we need traditional values. Yes, the institutions need to be fixed. Yes, we need to rip this stuff apart. And I think that's what the battle is here. And quite frankly, and we've talked about this before, I think the Republican Party is kind of sitting on the sidelines, not really part of that battle.
So we actually have this clip, right? And we were going to play it in our first half hour, and we ran out of time because, Gary and I get to talking and we have a lot of fun and we just run out of time. So I actually think that you will appreciate this based on what you just said as much as I appreciated it when Gary showed me. So we're going to play that clip, and I want to get your live response.
You're an American who is considering leaving the country to move somewhere else. Make sure that the location you choose isn't based off of fear and lack mentality. I regret moving to Costa Rica. It's a beautiful country. I love the nature and wildlife, but moving to a third world country where I don't know the language, I don't have any connections, resources, or opportunities, that didn't make my life any easier by any means. I was just so scared of what's going on in America politically that I was in fight or flight. I was like, how am I gonna afford to survive? Like, how am I gonna find a place to live? Like, I was freaking out. And then I came here and made my life so much harder. And now I'm trying to go back, and I just wish I didn't leave in the first place. And it's so weird to want to move to America right now with everything that's going on. But I just left so many privileges and resources behind, and I want them back. It sucks. But I kind of grew up in an interesting way. I was the poorest person in the wealthiest rooms throughout most of my childhood. I was extremely wealthy till I was age 6. I had this beautiful waterfront mansion with a private beach and pool. And then my parents got divorced, and I ended up with a parent who didn't have money. So we were living out of trailers and hotels and lower income housing, but I was still in these really wealthy situations. I was in private school and cotillions and dance lessons. And I always thought that I was so poor because I was the poorest person that I knew. And all of my friends had millionaire and billionaire parents. Now that I've traveled, I've seen real poverty, and I'm oh, I wasn't poor. But as a kid, I had these really luxurious vacations through my friends and family members where my first introduction to Costa Rica, it was when I was 17 years old. I came with my friend's family, and we stayed at exclusive resorts. We were having lunch at the Four Seasons, and same with my Hawaii experiences. My family friends took me, and we stayed at the Grand Wailea and the Hyatt, all these really fancy luxury resorts. And we would explore the areas too, but living in Nonavale or Pahoa is very different than taking a vacation at the Grand Wailea or Four Seasons. So, my travels and moves, I've really realized how privileged I've been. And there's a lot of things that made me run away from LA and Orange County, some traumatic experiences and terrible people. But I left a lot of resources and great people behind, and I need to be in those environments again. I really miss luxury environments.
It's hysterical. Man. It makes me laugh so much. God, what is your reaction to that?
I pity her. She has been the victim of probably the largest psychological operation in the history of the world.
Yes.
Which is a unified attack by a probably trillion media government oligarchy that is bent on weaponizing her emotions against her in order to maintain the status quo. That's basically what happened. Imagine convincing somebody that the best country on earth ever is the worst country on earth ever, and what it takes in order to arrive at that situation. And so, obviously she's trying to get back, but there's no escaping the fact that we do have a competing situation where on one side you have people who will literally drive their followers insane in order to stay in power maintain the status quo,
Yes.
and prevent accountability from coming. And on the other side, you have people that are increasingly unburdened by what has been when it comes to expressing their anger about how all of these systems have been manipulated against them. The anger is not getting less; it's getting more, and it's starting to bubble up everywhere in places like Twitter, in a way that I think we just saw this week. J.D. Vance acknowledged in a very stunning way. And so everybody's saying, and I think you can judge this anger by people's lack of willingness in order to maintain political correctness anymore.
Yeah.
And people have said, well, this is new. It's bubbling up. It's bigger. And no, it's always been. Remember, let's not forget that the Trump movement really started on 4chan.
It did.
But now the thing is that what you see on Twitter is what you saw on 4chan 10 years ago.
Yes.
That's right.
And that's going to be, I mean, everybody in politics is on Twitter. And so they are not going to be able to run away from this level of anger. It's only going to get worse.
That's right. Let me go back just for a second. I pulled up your piece on this poll on National Guard deployment. So it's 52% side with Trump on National Guard deployment. But that's down 10 points from where it was, I think, right?
Yeah.
And so reading your piece here, there's still tremendous support, but this constant media barrage is eroding that support. This constant psychological operation is taking that support down month after month.
Yeah.
So it works.
But we're seeing that psychological operation in Chester County right now. We were just talking in one of our group chats this morning about a man who has entered our country at least 3 times illegally,
Yes.
who was here for 20 years, and people are putting in up free the man's name signs in their front yard. Like, he's a good man. He lived a life. He raised a family here. We need to free him and bring him back to our community. They have yard signs for this in neighborhoods where we live. This man is here illegal. He got picked up in December, bringing his entire family back from the Virgin Islands where he had taken them on vacation, right?
Mhm.
Like, he could afford to take his family to the U.S. Virgin Islands on vacation over Christmas, but he couldn't afford to hire an attorney over the last 20 plus years to solidify his citizenship status.
Well, and not even citizenship. Like, I don't think any of these
Yes.
people have an automatic call on citizenship, but he could have at least tried to get permanent residency. If you're in other countries that take care of themselves,
Yeah.
you have to leave the country, then apply for residency or apply for a visa, come back, and then apply for permanent residency or green card or work permit. You know, there's a process. We're the only country now, well, us and all of Western Europe, where our officials, those inside our system, have said, hey, we're going to set aside everything. Come on in and invade. You can lower wages. You can disrupt our society. You can undermine our culture, pass your own laws if you want, have your own legal system if you want in some communities. And we'll not do anything about it. Now that something's being done, we're supposed to stop.
Cry. We're supposed to put these signs in our front yards that say
and
free
weep.
Carlos and cry for this man that none of us have ever met. It is absolute
sad.
emotional manipulation.
It is. It's a
100%.
great example. And,
it's going to work on people.
It does.
It does.
We also touched earlier on this Pressler thing, and it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? All these frauds are explained, Amish, 50,000, flip counties, all this kind of stuff. And people just accept it thoughtlessly. And next thing you know, they're pouring money into this dead end while candidates aren't funded, messaging isn't funded. It's craziness.
Well, and actually, Mark, I think have you done any polling on New Jersey? Are you watching that governor's race at all? Because I think I saw you mention something on that race. So I want to give you a second to say that, but then I want to circle back to the Scott Pressler thing because it relates to the New Jersey race. So what are you seeing in that race for us?
Well, it's not good.
I know.
And I think here's what people have to acknowledge. I think on the right, it's like, well, when Trump got elected, there was a whole lot of copium. I think people were really optimistic, and they created a narrative of the country moving right. And the country didn't move right. It moved towards Trump.
Yes.
And, people try and use proxies like the words free market capitalism versus socialism. And I don't really think that reflects what's going on. Like, we don't even really kind of have free market capitalism.
No.
We're basically in a situation where the Joe taxpayer is now subsidizing the entire globe.
Yep.
And why would anybody come here and become a naturalized citizen? That means that they're one of the suckers that has to subsidize every other country on earth, right? I mean, that's basically what's happened.
That's true.
And, Trump gets in and everybody's like, oh, it's so conservative. Oh, the Republicans are going to win. Well, no, the Republicans have done nothing, and their core is still traditional conservatism,
Yeah.
which isn't addressing the economic needs. People don't want to hear, oh, we're going to give corporate tax cuts and maybe this will trickle down on you. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear, like, let's rip this thing apart because it's already failed. And, so then you get in these state races, and you look at Jack Ciattarelli, and he's like, okay, he's a pretty good candidate. He's probably got the right things if you were going to run as a traditional conservative. But I looked at the polling, and he's down 6 points, which you have to acknowledge is like, okay, that's actually pretty good in a state that is not red. It's not getting red.
Sure.
It got more Trump, but a lot of that was blowback against Biden. But if you look at the internals, these people kind of don't really hate their blue state system.
Yeah.
It's given them a lot. There are major corporations here. They employ a lot of people, the government. People don't really think their schools are actually failing that much. And so the problem is that they're basically the frog in the proverbial pot of boiling water, and there's not enough pain because I think Ciattarelli did as well as he did before because of the COVID stuff. Well, that's gone, and they're not running against Murphy anymore. They're running against this woman who is frankly good enough for most Democrats to stick to the whole Yankees versus Mets mentality.
Yeah. And it's such a shame, too, because I believe she's lied about her service. Like, she has some real skeletons in her closet. But, you have Scott Pressler and the like running over to New Jersey because there's this, drama going on in this governor race. And now I'm getting text messages to donate to Scott Pressler, where Jack really needs the money if he wants to do any better in that race.
It should go to the candidate's campaign. Yeah.
And so, no, all these people now think that Scott Pressler is going to change the outcome in New Jersey if they send him money. And I'm sure he's raising millions again there. So, we're stuck in this weird place where the money is being diverted to these, I don't know what word to use. Distractions. Perfect.
Yeah.
Instead of going to the candidates who could use that money for ad buys, for media, for whatever it is they need in the last few weeks before this race. But I don't see that. I don't see the money going to these candidates. I see him going to the people like Scott Pressler for mail-in ballot pushes. And, if you look at our county office in Chester County, we just lost another major employee in that office. It's been a massive turnover in that department, and they're way behind on issuing ballots. So we're in trouble, and it just gets worse with this messaging, and the financial diversion is just so much to overcome when, the littler grassroots groups or these candidates could use those funds.
Yeah, I think, again, ultimately, I think the Republican Party is just completely sleeping on this and doesn't understand what the future of American politics is going to be. And I'm not trying to beat up on Jack. Like, I think he is a pretty good candidate.
I think so, too.
For a race that he might have won 10 years ago.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah, he might have walked into it 10 years ago.
Right.
All right, let me give you another, if I might, just one more example that I think illustrates what you're saying. And it's right off your page. It's from Tuesday, October 14th. Democrats hold a 6-point advantage on healthcare issue. So, here you go through and say that 45% of likely U.S. voters trust Democrats more to handle healthcare, while 39% trust Republicans and 16% are unsure. And so if you think that this was a shift right and they're going to abandon Obamacare because you've done such a great job of explaining it, and suddenly they're going to flock to you because you got an R next to your name, I think this is naive and extremely dangerous as we head into the midterms.
And if you look at the people who like Democrats more on the issue of healthcare, it's the bookends. It's the 18 to 29s and the 65 and olders.
Yeah.
And the 18 to 29s, again, economic scarcity. That's why they want Democrats on the healthcare. And the 65 and older, it's because they want their Medicare paid for, right? Yep. And so it's the people in the middle. They're like, well, we're the few remaining people that can attack this. If you look at Ciattarelli and the age stuff, and again, it was just one poll, but I think it's probably pretty representative. He is actually winning with everybody in New Jersey except the under 40-year-old people. And so I don't know what the under 40s did for Trump back in the election, but nationally they were way more for Trump than anybody expected.
Exactly.
Well, they're all still actually socialists, so they're not going to vote for a conservative Republican because the party doesn't speak to them. Literally, conservatism now is a luxury belief. Can you imagine stealing all these people's jobs, destroying their dollar, wrecking their dating scene, driving them insane, breaking their families, divorcing their parents, destroying and watering down their religion, literally destroying their society, and then dumping them onto terminal online status in the internet to parent them, and then telling them, no, you got to suck it up and do what we did. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right.
Put a little money under your mattress every day, and maybe you'll be able to buy a house cash.
Right.
Like they don't want to hear that message at all. And so I think they want to burn the system down. And if you look at Twitch streamers, if you look at YouTube streamers, the ones that are hitting the young people, these are independents who, by and large, are just raging against an insane system that they know is corrupt, and that's why they voted for Donald Trump. And so Donald Trump, again, has a very shrinking window to fix this. And, okay, he's fixing some stuff. Great. Michael Bolton might go to jail. Great, they indicted Smartmatic. It would probably help to clean up our elections, but unless you can address the fact that the system has literally maximized rent-seeking. It is a complete oligarchy now. There are a few people who have figured out how to centralize all of this at the top, and that has to come crashing down. And I don't think the Trump administration, I mean, it's doing some of it, but it doesn't look like it's completely committed. I don't know. I mean, we'll see how the Chinese trade war plays out.
Right.
I guess we'll see. But it needs to be like they needed to crash the housing market yesterday. They need to cancel the H-1B system and ship everybody back. And if they don't do it, I don't think they're going to get the 18 and 29s. I hate to be inflammatory, but I think that we're basically almost at that place, like where there are no easy answers.
I don't think you're being inflammatory. What I think you're doing is and you and I have had this conversation, Ada, we've all had this conversation now for months. This is the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
Ignore it at your peril. And when you think about that 18 to 39, everything you just said is spot on. And the only politician that has addressed that has laid out a policy position to address those things, and then effectively did it when he was in office, was Donald Trump.
That's it.
So naturally they flocked to him.
Yeah.
But then you look to the Republicans in Congress, again, House, Senate, White House, and what are they doing to lock in the policies that Trump ran on and has implemented in many cases through executive orders? What have they done? They've complained to us that they can't do anything because the Democrats have a minority in the Senate. And they might, if they try to do anything, the Democrats might give a really long speech.
Yeah, right. Well, it's even worse than that, I think. Thune came out and said somewhere, I forget where I saw it, Thune came out and said, I've been calling on them for like a year now to use the nuclear option and give Americans like a real Congress that'll pass real laws that they want. They've been resisting that for decades. And he actually said something that sounded a whole lot like, we don't have the math. Well, in my opinion, what that means is that, yes, he's acknowledging that the idea has value because now other people like MTG are pushing for it. Yes, the idea has value, but we can't do it because we can't even unify our party. Murkowski and Collins are going to undermine it. Well, it's like, okay, you have to brutalize these people, call them out, use your blackmail, like do whatever you have to do to get there, because the Democrats are not going to have this problem when they get a majority in the Senate. They're just absolutely not. And again, no easy answers, but it seems like they want to maintain the status quo. And you got Trump. I do think J.D. Vance is going to be a very, very committed economic populist. I think, I've seen him remark on wealth inequality. I think that is the core of what he thinks the party should be. Mm-hmm. But that means they're just going to take him out. They're going to try and take him out with whoever they can get in there.
The party
they're going to run Ted Cruz, or they're going to try and make Rubio the establishment candidate. And it's not going to work because J.D. Vance is polling so well.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to see an increasing civil war on the right. And we're also seeing that playing out right now over the position on Israel, which is tearing the party apart.
Oh, yeah.
So, everybody wants, I'll give you good news, I guess. The Republicans aren't losing as bad as they could have been on the generic ballot, but it's like we shouldn't be talking about good news right now because the writing's on the wall.
But they are losing on that ballot, on that ballot for the midterms. Yeah. They're behind.
Yeah, there's a Harry Enton piece out where he's like, well, back in 2017, the Democrats were up 8, and now they're only up 3 in the Real Clear Politics aggregate. It's like, yeah, okay. But there's a 90+% chance the Democrats are going to get a House majority at least, regardless of what the polling says. And I agree that there are Republican gerrymandering advantage that might eke out a Republican majority, and maybe they will arrest Act Blue, and maybe indicting Smartmatic will be enough to fix this. But even if Republicans somehow pull this off by the skin of their teeth, well, what does a Republican Party who won on nothing do for the country?
So,
right.
Nothing. It makes it worse. And so that,
With that being said, though, if they all actually started doing what we sent them there to do, if they started being a little bit more Trump-like, if they started stealing their backbone and actually taking the fight that the American people want them to take on, I bet their numbers would improve, though. And yet they still can't bring themselves to do it for some reason. It is the craziest. You have these Republican elected officials, Congress, Senate, who their comments and replies on social media are do something, do something, do something, and they still can't. They're paralyzed. I don't understand it at all.
It's not even the legislative stuff that's a complete problem. Well, they've committed themselves to this budget reconciliation process. And so I think they've framed everything around that. And that's their answer to, I guess, the nuclear option. But it looks horrible from an optics perspective, because no matter what they pass, Americans aren't going to know what gets lumped into these things. And all they're going to hear is like 3,000 pages and our spending didn't go down.
Yeah.
And that, in my opinion, like really kind of counteracts like the whole idea of doing this. But it seems like they don't care or aren't sensitive to that at all. But forget the legislative stuff. We polled, and the number one issue in America right now is political violence because of the Charlie Kirk assassination.
Sure.
And believe it or not, Democrats are more worried about political violence than Republicans are. And that's because they've been taught that MAGA extremists are violent because of January 6th. Well, where the hell is restitution for January 6th? Where is this commission that we're supposed to have? That it's been 6 weeks now since it was convened and we've heard nothing about it. Like, how long are we going to go into the window before we redress the fact that, it was a Fedsurrection, it was a setup, it was all lies? Because this has been hanging over the heads of America for 4 years now, 4+ years, and it's all fake. And it's one of the key issues that was used to turn Democrats into this overly gaslit authoritarian group of people. And the COVID stuff, they wanted to throw people who question the efficacy of vaccines in jail.
Yes.
That's how bad it got, by a majority. And it's like, Trump got a vaccine last week.
That was
Listen,
crazy.
Where is the sanity?
We have a transgender man, transgender female, I think that's the
I
label,
can't keep track.
running for mayor in Downingtown, which is a Chester County town neighboring ours. And I want to read this. It's just a short little meme I saved this week in response to the Democrats having more of an issue with political violence. Democrats are the only group on the planet that can gun down an innocent man, celebrate his death, mock his wife, destroy memorials for him, lie about who killed him, and somehow still make themselves the victims, which we are seeing from this Erica Diosu, however you say his name, but who's running for Downingtown mayor, talking about needing security and a bulletproof vest to go to fairs and festivals in Downingtown because he's so afraid of the violence.
Well, and that same fear is what drove that woman to move to Costa Rica with no job, no resources, no friends, no contacts, nothing.
And then shock that it was hard.
Yeah, she's like, wait a minute, this isn't that easy. I mean, come on. You know what? She thought she was going to hang at the Four Seasons?
It sounds good for a week.
So it is.
Yeah.
We are in a tough spot now in Pennsylvania. We talked about this in the first segment a bit. One of our problems is that rather than looking at the real reasons Donald Trump won and saying, let's organize around those platform positions, let's organize around those policies.
Messaging?
And by the way, we have a tremendous Freedom Caucus here and some great senators who would lead the charge on that. But we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is talk about this myth that he somehow won from these silly mail-in ballots.
Yeah.
Now, mail-in ballot usage went down by Democrats hugely and by Republicans significantly, less so, but significantly. And it's because mail-in ballots went down that he won.
Yes.
But that's not what they're saying. They're literally saying he won because of mail-in ballots and all the policy issues that actually drove people to the polls, that drove the 18 to 39s and got greater results in Philadelphia than any other candidate in memory. all of those policy issues are being ignored, and we're focusing exclusively on method of voting and picking the most complicated method you could have.
Yeah. I don't know where we're going because you think, well, eventually there could be a preference cascade. Eventually people could wake up, right, and say, you know what, it's gotten too bad. I can't afford to be an idiot anymore. But I think Biden would have been sort of the near-term example of that. And so we did kind of see a preference cascade. For whatever reason, they didn't steal the 2024 election. Donald Trump got elected. If you look at all the language out of the Republican Party in November of 2024, it was very supportive of MAGA. And it hasn't. They did not come with the unified front that we would need in order for that preference cascade to usher in this golden age of America that people were talking about. It's very easy to just look at where we're at now and say, yeah, Trump's going to fix some stuff, but it's not going to be enough to really heal the institutional rot, to undo the extent to which people have been sold a bill of goods about socialism. And so I think what we're going to see then is peak confusion, probably more balkanization, probably people with firmer beliefs, but in smaller minorities. And it gets us away from looking at the polling and saying, well, everybody overwhelmingly just wants all the legal aliens gone. It's going to be a lot more sort of like divisive and tough to point out. And then probably the risk of this popping off is just going to increase. And people are going to get, I think, closer to the ragged edge of what is politically acceptable. I think the Overton window is going to be pushed and strained in both directions.
Yes.
And you're already seeing it. And so it's like, I didn't like what those people were texting about in the Young Republicans. But the fact that J.D. Vance came out and publicly didn't abandon them and got 160,000 likes and 30 million views or whatever it was on Twitter, that's a really big deal. That's somebody who could be the president, who looks like the odds-on polling favorite to be the president in 28, coming out and saying, like, no, it's changed. The discourse has changed. We're not going to disavow our people if you don't disavow yours. That's so radically different than what the Republican Party has done.
I retweeted that and said, we don't deserve the timeline we're on, but I'm enjoying every minute of it. It is the best thing to see because we're not going to do it anymore. The other side has gotten us into this method of apologizing for absolutely everything that we have nothing to do with. And the other side will not disavow death threats or, wishes of harm to come to children. No, we're not playing your game anymore.
So the way you described that, though, I think is really good. Now, somebody asked me yesterday, Mark, the way you're describing where we are, right? And somebody asked me yesterday what I think of the economy. And here's what I said. I said, it feels like the economy is in a period of transition, like a sailboat tacking. The sail is rippling and flapping as we try to catch the wind and get it back on course. It sounded great when I thought that was a pretty good, but it summarizes a little bit of what you just went through, or, as you explain where we are. The sail is rippling a little bit, right? I mean, we're trying to tack, but we're not yet catching the wind. We're not yet back on track. So I think I just think we have some real challenges. Now, Mark.
There's no way to reorganize our global economic system to be have more equality without breaking a lot of eggs to make that omelet. There's just no clean path to get there.
There is not. And you said earlier, we don't have a capitalist system. We haven't been in a capitalist system in many years. When you've got an entire nation's economy and now the world economy driven by $2 trillion federal deficits, that's not capitalism. When you've got regulations adding, according to some of the regulations they're trying to repeal, $4 trillion of cost to the economy. That's not capitalism. That is a government-controlled economy akin to what the Soviets had, akin to what the Chinese are running, and it's not healthy. Mark, you did one more poll that I want to touch on, but we're running a little bit over, and we've got another guest. Can you hang with us for a bit for this next segment? Can you stay on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. TJ, if we could, we've got Darren Gobb on the line, who has been with us many times. Darren is an expert on geopolitical matters, and it gives us great insight into strategy. And I just wanted to bring Darren on. Darren, welcome to the Conservative Voice on WWDB.
Hey, good afternoon out there, and good morning out here in Seattle. Hope you guys are doing well.
You're in Seattle. Keep your head down. I mean, there's some radicals out there.
Well, I'm on the Joint Base Lewis McChord in an aviation battalion area, so I'm doing pretty good.
Oh, you should
Surrounded
be.
by stuff I spent many years around.
You know how to operate. Yeah, you should be relatively safe there. I want to touch on this one more polling point that Mark. We have Mark Mitchell with us from Rasmussen Reports from the previous segment, and he's going to stick with us a bit. I just wanted to touch on one more thing, Mark, that you hit, which I don't think anyone understands, but I do think is affecting the perspective of voters, which is unemployment. So you do at Rasmussen a separate unemployment survey, and as we all know, because the government shut down, the BLS isn't putting out statistics, but it doesn't really matter because all their statistics are nonsense. I mean, we've looked at this in detail for years and just seen massive amounts of fraud in the unemployment numbers and the employment numbers. But you just did one, and you came out and said that the unemployed are now looking at about 8.3%. They're unemployed but looking for work, 8.3%, where the official number is half that.
Yeah, that's been the trend. Our number is twice as much as the official number, and there's a whole lot more of people who say they're not in the workforce as well. And the age is pretty bad. The 18 to 29-year-old hovers between 15% and 20%. So that number is already super high. But if you look at, we have basically a tech-driven bubble driven by retail investors. We have a housing market bubble that has to collapse. And it could blow back into a consumer crunch. And so we have a lot of things that could create an economic hard landing that could push youth unemployment into 25, 30%. So any politician out there who isn't willing to be maximalist about reversing all of the immigration that we've had, about changing the policies, about maybe clamping down on AI or forcing higher American bills or things like that, anybody who's not full-throated backing up those kind of concepts is not going to capture the hearts and minds of 18 to 29-year-olds.
No, they are not. And again, I think that while we talk about this extensively, it just is absent from the rhetoric and thinking and strategy work being done by Republicans at the county, at the state, at the federal level, at the national level. It's just they're just not thinking it. All they're thinking of is how do we get past this first term, this Trump term, and get back to normal where we're all passing out money and everybody's, doing carbon capture projects for, they may harm the environment, but hey, we're going to make some money. So who cares? So I just don't think, I think we're in trouble here. If this party doesn't begin to adopt an ideology, then we're going to go back to Democrat rule and it's going to get rough.
Agree wholeheartedly.